Hi folks, Cowboy here. Getting late in the afternoon, having a little cup of, Cowboy coffee. So if you've been watching some of my earlier videos, you would probably know what I'm about ready to do. So tonight for dinner, we're going to be having some tostados, which I used the leftovers from the red chicken pozole soup that we'd made. And so we made some tostados that night and used some black beans on them, and they were really delicious. So we're going to have that tonight and use those leftovers. But as a little appetizer, we're going to do some white queso, Mexican queso dip from scratch. So, as most of these things I do, they're a labor of love, but they're well worth it. So, if you'd watched the earlier video, you'll notice that I made some homemade tortilla chips. And of course, that again, it just takes time. You just got to be patient. So, we're going to make this queso dip. I'll give you the ingredients here in just a second, and we'll get started. I think I'll have another sip of Cowboy coffee. Man, gotta get your engine running. So here's the ingredients. We're first going to start out with a little butter in a saucepan. We'll get that melted. Then we're going to add the green onions, only the white part. Then we're going to add, that's about a quarter cup. Then we're going to add 2 cloves of garlic. We're going to let those saute just a little bit. Now remember, don't forget the butter, and we're using, good butter. Once that gets to going, we get that all sauteed. Then we're going to add the tomatoes, which is going to be a little over a quarter cup. That's more than that, so we won't be using all of those. Now, it calls for some cayenne pepper, but instead I'm going to use some fresh serrano peppers. Once that gets to marinating just really good, then we're going to add a half a teaspoon of onion powder and a half a teaspoon of cumin. Then we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. That means we're going to add some evaporated milk and a tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to let that simmer for just a little bit and let that meld. And then we're going to add in those green chilies. Once that all gets melded together, we're then going to use some white cheddar cheese and some American cheese. Going to use about a quarter pound of each. So that will take a little bit of getting prepared, and we'll show you how it's done. And at the end, don't ever forget, we got the tops of the green onions that we'll stir in just to give it some great color, and also some cilantro. So, let's get started. So I've got my heat on about medium. A little extra butter is healthy for you. So we're going to let that get to going. Going to let that melt. The next thing that we will do is we'll add the onions. Let them go for just a few minutes. And then we will add the garlic. That looks good, so let's add the onions now. Now remember, we're going to use just the white part of the onions. You can see that. We're going to let those saute for just a few minutes. I'm going to turn my heat up to medium-high. And we'll let those go, and we'll be back in just a second. All right. You can see they're doing great. So let's add the garlic in. You know, I was watching, when I was pre-editing one of my videos earlier, I thought, I'm pretty angry when I'm stirring that stuff. Not really. So we're going to let those go for about 30 seconds. Which I think we've already done. So now we're going to add the tomatoes. About a 1/4 cup. That ought to do it. This all happens pretty fast. We're going to go ahead and add the peppers. You should smell that aroma. Oh, that's looking great. So we're going to now start adding the seasoning. Okay, there's a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. Then we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And now we're going to add the cornstarch, which is going to be a tablespoon. Then we're going to add the evaporated milk. And we're going to stir this quite often. Keep it going. We want to get that up to a simmer. And now we're going to add the peppers, the chili peppers, I'm going to let that go for just a little bit. And the next will be the cheese. Alrighty, so we got that simmered and then brought it to a boil. And now, you can see it's thickening up. So now we're ready to start adding the cheese. And I'm going to tear this cheese up just a little bit so that it melts a little bit better. This is the American. Cheddar, American cheddar. All right, that looks great. So now let's get that cheese melted. Not quite all melted yet. And like I said, we used 1/4 pound of each. American, and then white cheddar. You want to keep stirring it so you don't burn it. Look how thick that's getting. Let's let that simmer for just a little bit. I got it on low. All the cheese is done. That's pretty good. All right. I do believe we are done. I'm going to turn it off, and we'll come back and give her a sample. Okay, so I took that off the heat, and if you watched an earlier video, you may have noticed that I made some fresh tortilla chips. And guess what I'm going to do with these? You got it. We're going to come over here, and we're going to just sample this. Oh, look at that coat. Look at that. Look at that. How beautiful. I wonder if these chips are crunchy. Delicious. I think we ought to have another one, don't you? Not too thin, not too thick, just perfect. Hope you enjoyed that little video. And as usual, I'm hungry. I need an appetizer. I'll see you on down the road.